Good evening. I'm Councillor Wendy Alford, and I will be the chair for this special committee of the whole for December 21st. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Before I ask for that, people watching may notice that council isn't dressed the way they normally would be. We're all in our festive gear to celebrate the season, and some of us have our ugliest Christmas sweaters on. So we hope you enjoy our lack of fashion sense. So amendments to the agenda. Councillor Mayor Panko.
Yes, we had a request earlier today from Reverend Christopher Ryan from Trinity United for food security. I'd like to add that as priority item D, I guess, please.
Okay. Thank you. Any other amendments to the agenda? CEO Morris?
Yes, Madam Chair, we'd like to add a topic of the ISIP funding application.
Okay, we'll put that in as E then. Any other amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, all of council's here, including our student Councillor Lagarde, and I don't see our other student councillor, but that's fine. We're glad to have you here, Sarah. Okay, so are there any disclosures of monetary interest? Seeing none. There are no delegations tonight. Can I have a motion to adopt the minutes of November 16th and December 7th? Councillor Dwyer, seconded by Councillor McKenna. All those in favor? Carried. And CEO Morris, you have some reports tonight?
Yes, we do. In fact, we have three, and we'd like to kick it off with Chief Cheeseborough.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chairman. Tonight's report is certainly not going to be a reflection of some of the activities that have taken place today, but I'm sure some of the questions will lead into that. Following our meeting last week, the health unit has reported that the Westport situation is recovering. Gananoque cases are still very high. The past week for the health unit has been focused on workplace outbreaks. The health unit is having a hard time keeping up with the complaints as inspectors have been otherwise occupied. They have requested support from bylaw. The police have indicated they can also provide support and enforcement as necessary. A new dashboard on the website will be coming out, hopefully this week, if not after Christmas, that will better display the current statuses right across our region. The province has indicated there may be a shutdown of some type after Christmas. There was concern about the school shutdown and childcare impacts for staff. Discussion will need to occur to prepare for potential move to the red zone. Our personal protective equipment stock has been reviewed, and currently we're waiting delivery of additional masks as that supply has gotten low as there's been a substantial increase in the use of masks and gloves. The arena will be closed over the holidays as there are no bookings. This will allow additional time for staff to conduct a thorough cleaning. There will be limited hours for the walking track. That will be posted and made available. We are reinforcing the message that outside groups from other communities are not permitted the use of our arenas. We reviewed the town services for the holiday period. We will limit exposure for staff by closing the town hall to public. That messaging is to be shared December 21st to give the residents notice, highlighting garbage tag purchases in advance. The CDC closed between Christmas and New Year's. The health and safety training may be available for specific pandemic situations. I will be investigating that with our provider in the upcoming week. The emergency management radio ads began early December. They'll continue through to the new year. And it's certainly there'll be 4 ads placed by Smith Falls that are on a rotational basis with other departments in the county. And it brings the information to the public regarding 72-hour kits and other items that they should consider during an emergency. The vaccination rollout from the health unit, the managers are working on Lanark leads Grenville's response. And currently the Ontario Health is the spearheading the distribution of the rollout. The local health unit will coordinate the local rollout. Town facilities have been offered for mass for vaccination if and when that does come to our area. And we have submitted our hazard identification risk assessment to the province. It has been reviewed and completed, and this will accompany our 2020 emergency management compliance report. So we're waiting actively to hear back that we are compliant. And a video was created with the mayor and Dr. Stewart. We'll be reviewing the options of posting that to our website. That is all for tonight, Madam Chairman.
Probably not all, Chief, because that was based on your the information you had at your last meeting, and as of 1 p.m. today, the Premier has some changes for us. So, Councillor Dwyer, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, Madam Chair, you kind of made my point. I just wanted to clarify that as Chief Cheeseborough was speaking in the past tense about the updates, that this has dramatically changed since this afternoon. So perhaps the Chief could give us a brief summary on what to expect after today's update, at least at a high level. I mean, I think the basis of what I understood was that we are indeed going into a lockdown as a gray zone as of midnight on Christmas Eve. Perhaps the Chief could confirm.
Yes, through the chair, that is correct. I can give you a few highlight notes regarding the lockdown situation that the Premier announced today that will spread right across the province of Ontario. 4 areas in the northern part of Ontario, they will see a lockdown of 14 days. Current lockdown for Southeast region has been also pegged at 14 days, which will take place at 12:01 December the 26th. There was a 28-page distribution that was sent out from emergency management and the province detailing some of the areas that would have be certainly the highest impact. Now, for restaurants that serve alcohol and food, curbside pickup will be permitted. Big box stores will be limited to 50% capacity. Retail stores, some of them will be limited to 25% capacity. Funerals, weddings, they still will be affected to a maximum of 10 people inside or outside. The province has announced between $10,000 and $20,000 grant funding for businesses in which they can apply immediately for that when the lockdown takes place. And again, these lockdowns, the time periods, although they indicate it could be 14 days, it could be 28 days, I think the province will be making a final decision on possible extensions following the 14-day period. There's $12.5 million that has been set aside for communities. Ottawa has been listed as one of the high-risk communities that will be eligible to receive funding in support of transportation and some other key areas that they'll need it for. There's no question this is going to have a significant impact on what we do. So indoor arenas will be shut down. They have indicated in that 28-page document that exterior amenities such as ball fields will be permitted to continue operation, provided that it's limited to a number of 10 people. The social distancing is in place, that it is not a contact sport. So there are certain items that the province has been flexible with. But again, their message today was on the severity of both the second wave and some of the extensions to the current coronavirus. The Premier will be seeking assistance from the federal government for testing at Pearson International Airport, which currently isn't taking place for international flight.
And we seem to have lost the Chief. CEO Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. While the Chief comes back online, I think he covered kind of the highlights, but perhaps the question is what will it mean specifically for Smiths Falls? The Emergency Control Group is meeting tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock to identify what that will mean locally, and we'll distribute correspondence from our decisions made at that meeting shortly after. So we'll have a more definitive list of what's affected municipally, but certainly arenas, Looks like daycares child development centers can continue, but we'll have to make some decisions around each of those services independently. So more to come once we take stock of and digest what the Premier announced earlier today.
Thank you. Any other burning questions on this subject? Seeing none. Okay, thank you. And you have two more besides the chief?
Madam Chair, I had my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it, Jay, or Councillor Brown. What was that?
Well, just to be clear, I mean, as of midnight on the 26th, we're going to be in lockdown. So I think, we need to have a clear message to the citizens about what that means. And I know that there's a lot of pushback because I really think that the town has done, and our citizens and taxpayers have done a great job in adhering to the protocols. But the announcement today, it does have ramifications for the town. So I think the sooner the better that we get the messaging out what's going to happen here, because they were pretty clear today about what's going to happen and what we need to do, and I know we can do it. So I look forward to getting some information out to the people.
And I'm sure that that Chief Cheeseborough and the Emergency Measures Control Group will do that. They do need some time to disseminate all that the Premier said today. Also, I think you're mistaken. The date I heard was Christmas Eve at 12:01.
No, it's Boxing Day.
Oh, it's Boxing Day.
To be sure, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So if there's nothing else with regard to that, yes, Chief Cheeseborough, although Malcolm did somewhat cover when we lost you there.
Well, thank you. Madam Chairman, just so the council is aware, we will be having an emergency control group meeting tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. And our field representative from emergency management will be present at that meeting. So hopefully they can provide a little more clarity than we're trying to read through these 28 pages of document. Municipal offices are still permitted to operate. And that'll be the choosing of the municipality if it's open to the public or closed to the public.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, so more to come from the Premier's announcement today. Thank you. CEO Morris, there are two other reports.
Yes, next up we have Treasurer Quazile to adorn us with some good news.
Oh.
Thank you. So as council may recall, in August, we received a safe restart funding in the amount of $530,500. Last week, we received notification that there's going to be an additional round, and the town's allocation is $106,000. Both of those can be, obviously some of that will be used up in 2020, but we can carry it over into 2021. It's not a claims basis, but we do have to show the province that it was strictly used for COVID-related expenditures. So that's my update for tonight.
Mayor Panko?
Yes, Jenna, can you explain the formula or the method that the province determines allocating these funds? Because I may be off a little bit in the numbers, but when I heard it in the media, I reported, I think, Lake 88, that Carlton Place was getting over 400,000, and I think Perth somewhere around 250,000. So just a little bit surprised that our allocation is lower than those two municipalities by such a significant amount.
Certainly, through the chair. So the allocations are based on the number of households of the municipality, which was the first round as well. Further to that, though, it's proportionate of COVID-related cases in the municipality. So that may be why some of those areas are seeing more. Yeah, so that's the only further indication they have on the calculations.
So we do a good job at keeping it at bay. And okay, thank you.
Councillor McKenna? Councillor okay.
Sorry. Some of the funding I've seen announced, there's application-based funding and then the formula-based funding. And the media was sometimes mixing them together to give amounts. So it could be that those municipalities also had an application as well as this unsolicited fund. It could be that, Mayor Panko. I don't know, though.
Okay, so is that something that, Janet, is that something that we can get clarity on?
And on why they would have received more, I can certainly do some research. I indicated that might have been the phase 2 that we chose not to do the application based. I'll certainly see what I can find out and report back.
Thank you. Any other questions for Treasurer Kazil? Seeing none, and CO Morris, you have one more.
Yes, more of an announcement about our next council meeting, which was scheduled for January the 4th, first day back. So we've at the staff level decided to cancel that meeting because we're having a special council this evening. So we won't have items for that agenda. You may recall last week we talked about a public budget meeting, and we identified the 4th. In reviewing the timing, we felt that perhaps that might appear to be somewhat rushed, given we would only provide people time to comment over the holidays. So we felt moving that to the 11th of January, when committee reconvenes, would be a better approach. It would give people a little more time to comment. And incidentally, that's the same evening that we've scheduled the community grant applicants to come forward and present. So there will be a budget theme that evening, as well as some other items. So no meeting on the 4th, and we'll get back into the regular agenda on the 11th of January.
Thank you. Any Councillor Brennan?
Yeah, I agree that the 4th is too early, but I'm just wondering, is the community grants delegations, do we have a great number of them?
Through the chair, we had 10 of them.
So that through the chair, I mean, that's a whole night right there. So my suggestion to council would be to schedule a night other than a Monday to have a public budget meeting where people can log in, ask questions, and that sort of thing.
Deputy Clerk Bennett has some information.
So respectfully, we just have two delegations on that night. The policy states that the delegations will be provided to the groups that request $10,000 or more and are recommended by the evaluation team. So there are 2 groups that we've invited. That's Trinity United Church and Big Brothers Big Sisters that will be attending that meeting as delegations. Okay,
CO Morris?
So for clarity, the other 8 were below the 10,000 threshold.
Okay, so with regard to Councillor Brennan's suggestion, if there are only 2 delegations, do we feel comfortable going ahead as planned for January the 11th? I see some nodding. Yes. Yes. Anybody else okay to go ahead on the 11th with 2 community grants coming up that night? Councillor Allen, you had a question?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. So if I'm understanding what's just been said, we're going to have an open house at that meeting? People will be able to phone in? Is that the idea?
I don't know that the methodology was set. Sarah Morris, can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, so we looked at 2 kind of options for the public meeting, and felt that probably the one that's more practical to manage would be to use Speak Up Smith Falls to provide budget documentation, the same documents that have already been seen by committee, and encourage people to submit their comments, and then we would review those comments and answer them at the public meeting. So this way it gives people lots of lead time to have a look at the documents, prepare their questions, submit them through our engagement platform called Speak Up Smith Falls, and then we would address them at the meeting.
Treasurer Kazil?
Just further to CIO Morris, the other thing we were going to propose to do is to put out there what the council has directed staff thus far. CPI increases, the Smith Falls Hospital donation, CIP, and the overall community program envelope. So those types of things to see feedback from the public.
Okay. So I'm going to, Councillor Brennan?
Yeah, I mean, that really wasn't my idea of a public meeting. I mean, we have a public meeting that's in person. That obviously is not possible. However, it is possible on a Zoom format. And just a little anecdote, I have a planning master's student here. One of his assignments was to look at a public meeting at the Committee of Adjustment in Toronto. And they had a public meeting and they had people in the queue that were there to ask questions. So that was sort of my idea of what a public budget meeting would be.
Mayor Panko?
Yeah, as much as I think we get pretty good value from Speak Up Smith Falls, the need to register, I think makes it somewhat awkward for some people, and it does stand as a bit of a barrier. And I'm open to methods that can enable people to be more engaged that evening. And whether that is a chat method or a source where questions can come in, we can have a staff member who can sort of collect the questions and bring them to the floor, or share them with the moderator and bring them to the floor. I don't know about the effectiveness of having people on. I mean, from a Zoom standpoint, I'm not sure if we have enough capacity, and maybe it's possible to have hundreds of people in here at one time, if that was the number of people who wanted to tune in. But there's got to be other methods of getting questions answered.
Okay, Councillor Dwyer? Councillor Dwyer?
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think there's value in having the opportunity for people to speak directly to us. I think this is not rocket science. Zoom is a very easy platform for a lot of people to use, particularly on the administration side, to have people queued in a line and then offer them the opportunity to speak by queuing them in and out is quite easy. And I think Mayor Panko is right. I mean, if we have an opportunity to have the clerk or deputy clerk also monitoring for the comment section of Facebook Live, and then providing those questions directly to us to hear and consider, and then to also address through staff as appropriate. I think there's great opportunity for that, and I think it's necessary. I don't think, even given COVID, I don't think that it would be prudent for us to proceed with budget without going through fulsome public consultation. And I think we've been doing that through other mechanisms and other planning committees for the last 9 months. So this should be no different. I mean, I get that there's some concerns about, volume, but I'll be honest, having been through budget in Smith Falls for 10 years, the attendance is not astronomical. I think it's probably something we can manage. I mean, hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully this year we get like 200 participants. I'd be delighted to see it. But I think we're looking at a handful of people, and I think the management of comments coming from a handful of people is not going to be burdensome.
Councillor McGuire.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I think I like the idea of having the first ever Town of Smith Falls AMA. It'd be cool if we could get it to work. But I think we've got 3 weeks between this meeting and the meeting on the 11th, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of business that accumulates between now and then. So even though we've only got, we've got limited budget stuff, just considering the volume of other stuff that might come forward, I wouldn't mind separating them out.
Okay. Thank you. So from what I'm hearing, we want to provide as much engagement as possible. And if I could be allowed my own comment, It would be nice, I think, if we gave the opportunity to people who are not technologically savvy or have computers and things like that to be able to email or drop off their questions with regard to budget too. Then we leave no one out. It's more inclusive. But it sounds to me like if that is going to be the case, we're going to need a different meeting, a separate meeting that's not taking place at the same time council is trying to take place. So I don't want to nail stuff down or ask for an answer right now. I think that we should allow them the time to process what council has said and to give some time for them to figure out how we might do that. Is that fair, CAO Morris?
Yeah, absolutely. We can pull together in a more interactive format for sure. You know, I just going back on participation in the past, I'm not predicting it's going to overwhelm our agenda.
Okay. Well, in the off chance that it could or might, and some of these questions could be rather involved, I think I see consensus for us having it on a different night, the budget talk alone, that be the only item on the agenda, and leave the council to the regular business that we need to take care of. Is that I'm looking at, okay. Okay, so if we could schedule a
Can I make a comment?
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, I mean, I know that you know, we've always gone through this exercise, and we go have a staff sets up a meeting up at the arena, and no one comes. But if you look at the views on our meetings these days, they're in the hundreds. So I think we should be able to get some engagement.
Okay, fair enough. And again, it has to be manageable. So we'll leave that to the expertise of staff to figure out how we do that.
Sure.
Okay, so thank you very much. Now, if that is the end of director's reports, we're going to have to, I'm going to entertain a motion here shortly. We have to go in camera. We hopefully won't be too long. We ask for your patience and we'll deal with it as quickly as possible. And when we come back out, we'll be dealing with the priority issues. So if I could have a motion to move in camera by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Dwyer. All those in favor? Thank you, and we'll return as quickly as possible. Thank you for your patience while we were in camera. We do, Councillor Allen?
Yes, I would just like to disclose a pecuniary interest, and that's why I left the meeting during that in-camera session. Thanks.
Thank you. So council, coming out of that in-camera, council will be moving that issue to priority item F, employee negotiations and labor relations. Okay. So with that said, then we'll move on to priority issues. The first one is with our Treasurer Cozile, loan authorization for 2020 loan town hall complex renovations phase 2.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As noted, I'm here this evening to obtain council's approval to complete the borrowing of funds for the phase 2 town hall complex renovations. That was a 2020 capital project, and capital financing was indeed part of the budgeted funding allocations. The loan will be drawn, if is approved this evening, the bylaw, and the loan will be drawn advanced tomorrow. And the loan repayments won't commence until January. And it's a 10-year term and 10-year amortization. Annual or estimated monthly repayments will be $10,248, annual repayments of $123,000. And the interest rate quoted on it as of December 16th was 2.15. So with that, if council had any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Seeing none, Councillor Dwyer is not back as yet, but